West of the Rockies.
Why care? How can we prepare?
Their machine radios, throw them into dark, for a few hours.
We're fighting for our lives. We must survive.
5,000 gallons of air filtration, water filtration.
Coming at you from the frozen tundra that is East Central Alberta, Canada. Streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, and Odyssey. Welcome back to the workshop where we create community, find freedom, promote preparedness, and share success. I am Toolman Tim. Today is February the 24th, 2024, and this is episode 428 of Workshop Radio. How are all my fellow delinquents out there? I'm excited for a belated This Week in Prepping. You will see a few changes in this show. They'll be surprised as we go along. I hope you guys enjoy it. Let's open up with a rule to live by. This week we put it into the old spinning machine and out came rule number 22. This is one I've lived by for a long time. And if you ask my kids, they'll tell you I say it once in a while as well. And that is a broken clock is right twice a day. Now, what does that mean? Well, you could take that two different ways, but the first way I like to take it is truth is truth no matter where you find it. So even if you find it from a completely useless old broken clock or a person that you would normally say, I have no interest in being interested in them whatsoever, truth is truth no matter where you find it, number one. Number two, just because it's truth and just because somebody's speaking truth or just because the clock is giving you the right time of the day doesn't mean you need to give it the time of day, pardon the dad joke, the rest of the day. So here's the deal. Two different ways. Number one, truth is truth no matter where you find it. And number two, just because someone is giving you the truth doesn't mean the rest of what they have to say is either true or worthy or worthwhile for that matter. So it is great to have you guys. Thanks for coming in on a kind of belated Saturday evening. We had a basketball tournament with the kids this week, and it was a great time. So with that, I want to show you guys something. You know that I believe in getting 1% better every week. And if you're a content creator, the best you can do is improve every single week so that what you offer to your audience and your community improves. So first off, on Thursdays, and typically this is Saturday now, we've got a new outline, a new frame for the episode. So you'll know this is This Week in Prepping. It's always still going to be Workshop Radio, but the Thursday episode is going to be This Week in Prepping going forward. And for those who don't know, check this out. I'm going to introduce something new that's going to work for both radio, the audio podcast, because that's getting bigger every week, and the video here. So we've got some stingers or transitions that will transition us into the bigger segments each week. So with that, let's go.
Nothing like eating under an open sky, even if it is radioactive.
Dropping the dime. Precious metals.
All right. So this week we are going to drop the dime on dollar cost averaging with silver and gold. And if you don't know what dollar cost averaging is, let me bring this up right here for you. So I've got an article this week from goldline.com. Now, whenever we talk about precious metals, you need to know that this is not a command to invest. It's not a spend money on something you can't afford. This is a, hey, I'm into precious metals. I like to share what I'm into. And if you're into it as well, you can learn from it, or something you might want to learn down the road. So here we go. What is dollar cost averaging? Well, here we are. Dollar cost averaging is a flexible and ideal for beginners in precious metal investing. They kind of throw in a whole bunch of like, this is great, this is good, that sort of thing. But DCA, dollar cost averaging, is a flexible investment strategy that allows you to purchase assets by dividing and spreading your capital over a specific time. So that's a whole bunch of fancy words for, I don't have a ton of money, so I'm not going to drop, I'm not going to go and spend half the kids' college fund on precious metals. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure in my budget, I'm going to look at how much money I can afford each month. And, if I'm properly saving for retirement, if I have a proper health plan, if I have good food storage and all the other things, then, okay, how much each month can I absolutely spend on precious metals? And then you figure that out. So then what it does is it forces you, or it allows you to become budgeted. So for me, my local precious metals place that I order online, they have a $199 minimum order. Now, it's not a minimum order, but it's an order that if you spend that much, you get free shipping. So each month, that's what I do. I don't go over that. I don't go under it. I just kind of go right around it, however many ounces of silver it will buy. But that doesn't mean you need to do that. It might be going down to your local coin shop and buying 1 ounce of silver or 3 mercury dimes or whatever it happens to be. So that's the idea. And basically what it does, the reason they call it dollar cost averaging, is that you just kind of buy at the exact same time every month, and it kind of helps level out the dips as time goes on. Some people try to incorporate sort of looking at the month, looking at the 30-day moving average, and then buying the dip. Honestly, I have no patience for that. I'm very comfortable with the traditional method. Same way mom and dad invested in mutual funds over the years. You just have a set amount of money each month that comes out of your budget that you can easily afford, and you buy that many pieces of metal, silver or gold with it. Now, a spin on this, and this is what I found last month Tim, you're having a night tonight. Last week when I was putting together the show prep, a lot of companies have what they call precious metals accumulation program. So if you've got some silver, or you're like, you know what, I really want to buy some gold, but I can't afford gold. I can only put in $20 a month or whatever it happens to be. Well, companies will do this for you. You can send in your money each month, or they'll debit your account. And then when you hit whatever your goal is for gold, they'll send it out to you. Or when you hit their kind of benchmark for free shipping, they'll send it out to you so that you can get the best amount of value out of your precious metals. I like that. So right here, gold savings account, they call it. Let's say gold sells for $1,800 an ounce. If you don't have $1,800 on hand, consider using a gold savings account. This dollar cost averaging plan allows investors to save small amounts over time to purchase assets beyond their reach. You can invest $300 into your gold savings account per month, and over time, you'll own an entire ounce of gold. Or you can go buy 1 little gram bar, those cute little things, or whatever it happens to be. But so this one here, this is what I don't necessarily agree with. This company talks about taking advantage of price dips. You can do it if you have the time. But for me, I just really like the idea of buying it on a monthly basis. And then, if there's highs and lows in the month, you're going to come out after a year really even. So what do they say here? Over the last 20 years, gold has delivered an annual average gain of about 8%. We're going to talk about that a little bit more, because that's not as much as the S&P 500 from the Dow Jones Industrial Average. With dollar cost averaging, you don't need hundreds of thousands of dollars to start an investment. That's what I really like about this. It makes precious metals, if you are someone who's into preparedness and they're like, I'd really like to have some silver on hand for a rainy day. This makes it both attainable and a goal worth striving for. It doesn't make it feel like it is just something you can't do. It doesn't shoot you down the hole, So that's what I like about this. It makes it so that you can spend a little bit and start building up, because even a little is better than nothing at all, right? So I wanted to share a thought here. I'm going to interject some comments once in a while from the community that I found. This was a YouTube comment, and I wanted to share it because it pertains to precious metals. I could try, I guess this guy's name from YouTube is Hi-Fi, and he said, all right, and this is a reflection of the short platform, because you can't put an entire message in a short video. It makes it tough. So Hi-Fi says, I promise you, if shit hits the fan, no one will care about gold or silver. You cannot eat silver. You cannot shoot silver. Silver doesn't grow when you plant it, and silver can't pull a plow. What will have value if shit hits a fan is bullets, seeds, and work animals. Those are things that will keep you alive. The idea of silver for barter only comes into being once economies settle down and people have surpluses of all their needs. People who tell you to hoard silver for shit hits a fan don't understand economies post-economic collapse. I don't really disagree with anything that this person said. They're right. Lots of people recommend, the Alex Jones, right? I joke, but, Chicken Little says the sky's fallen. Go out and spend absolutely every penny you have on silver. Anybody who tells you that, run for the hills. honestly, anybody who tells you to have more than 5 or 10% of silver or gold is probably on the line, on the fence. I don't know what you want to call it, but here's the deal. When I look at silver and gold, for me, it's about making sure what you're going to purchase, what I'm going to purchase, is going to fit into our budget. I don't want anyone to ever think, oh my God, that's so stupid. And the person's not wrong. You know, silver, it's not going to shoot things. It's not going to grow vegetables for you. It can't pull a plow. All of that is absolutely true. But you know what you do? If you're worried that maybe the Canadian or American dollar isn't always going to be worth what it's going to be worth, it's called diversification. It's called, hey, I want to have some of the money I own in silver or gold. If you lived in, Argentina, you might want to have some, 5 or 10% in US dollars. It's all about hedging against inflation and protecting your net worth. That's what I love. Here you go. Tim Riley, what a great quote from the audience, says, heard a great line from Junius Maltby. I hope I got that name right here on YouTube. True, you can't eat silver, but without silver, you may not eat. Perfect. That's what I love. And no one is saying go and buy silver and gold, but don't have bullets, beans, and Band-Aids, because if you don't have bullets, beans, and Band-Aids, bullion's not going to help you a whole hell of a lot now, is it? So that's the thing. It's all about hedging your bets. It's about taking care of the things that are important to you now, the things that are most likely to happen, and then above and beyond that, going after the things that make sense for your own personal prepping vision. There, that's it. That's all I have to say about precious metals this week. If you guys have any topics or suggestions for little caveats that I can deal with in this dropping the dime on precious metals, I'd love to hear it. Kentucky Sustainable says, I'd rather have durable goods than silver and gold. Building supplies and stuff like that is a better investment. And I don't disagree at all. And that is actually an area that I'm working on. I know you're like, Tim, you don't have enough. I don't. I have a front shed that is going to become my actual hardware store this year. It's going to become a place where I store a ton of stuff for property management. So yeah, I don't disagree. Tangible goods, also a great thing. And again, I love diversification, but for me, I really, for many years, I'm going to throw this out before I forget. I never got into precious metals because when I was a baby prepper, for some reason, I only thought gold was worth investing in. I started digging into silver and the fact that, if you ever did need to barter with silver, well, it's a lot easier to trade an ounce of silver for some loaves of bread than to scrape a little bit of gold off, right? So there you go. Moving on. So this week we have our roving reporter, and that is Ms. Sunshine Prepper, Willow. And let's see what she has to say this week. All right, you guys ready? Hang in there.
Hello, and welcome to today's Sunshine Prepper News. I'm Willow, the Sunshine Prepper, here to spread a bit of positivity on the unavoidable doom and gloom. Join me for a quick laugh today for its mental and physical benefits before we get into today's topic. Your body can't tell the difference between fake and real laughs, so fake it to get those benefits. Look into Laugh Yoga for more information on the benefits of laughter. All right, 5 seconds. Ha 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 ha. Now that we have better set ourselves up for success, let's get into today's topic. Is the U.S. government being hypocritical about the whole Julian Assange situation? Until recently, I had no idea who Julian Assange was. I guess in 2010, I was too busy getting married and finishing college to notice the whole WikiLeaks thing that happened. But I think that Julian Assange's situation is vital and pivotal in humanity's collective struggle for freedom of speech and freedom of press. So Julian Assange is a journalist and the founder of WikiLeaks. That's a nonprofit to help whistleblowers blow the whistle. WikiLeaks became prominent in 2010 when it published a large volume of classified U.S. military and diplomatic documents provided by Chelsea Manning, a former intelligence analyst. Now, the leaks really exposed the United States committing war crimes in the Middle East. So from 2012 to 2019, Julian was granted asylum by the Embassy of Ecuador in the UK. But in 2019, Ecuador's government withdrew Assange's asylum status, blaming WikiLeaks for recent corruption allegations. He was then arrested and put into Belmarsh prison. They sentenced him to 50 months for jumping bail on something else in 2012, and then it's been a long fight against being extradited to the USA, during which time he's been languishing in prison. In 2021, a British judge ruled that Assange can't be extradited to the US because he's likely to kill himself if held under the harsh US prison conditions. Then in 2022, Britain's government ordered the extradition of Assange to the US, which of course Assange appealed, which brings us to today, where his legal team has launched a final bid to stop his extradition at the High Court. It seems like his lawyers might finally be getting somewhere in making the argument that he can't have a fair trial in the USA. Julian Assange exposed the nasty inner workings of the US war machine, and our government has been out to crucify him ever since. As far as I can tell, that's the core of the situation. But here's the kicker. All the while, our elected representatives, because we don't have leaders, so all the while, our representatives are demonizing and punishing Assange while super hypocritically vilifying Putin over the recent death of Alexei Navalny. So Alexei was a Russian opposition leader, a lawyer, anti-corruption activist, and a political prisoner. He and his team published material about corruption in Russia. So the Russian government put him in prison until he died. And the United States government is pretty much doing the same thing to Assange. But some of our representatives want to use Navalny's death as a moral high horse to lord over Putin, while these excrement holes are persecuting Assange for calling out their crap. Player's going to play, hater's going to hate, warmonger's going to warmonger, I guess. So let's have a quick stress-reducing laugh about our powerlessness over the corruption fueling global war machines. Ha 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 ha. Well, this one is a watch and pray situation. My actionable advice, if you choose to accept it, is to get some laughs in. We got to work hard and play hard. You got to do your chores, do your preps, and then have some fun. So go pick something that will have you belly laugh rolling on the floor and watch it. Whether it's George Carlin or like America's Funniest Home Videos or Biden falling off a bike, your health improves when you laugh more. So go get your giggle on. Thank you for tuning in. Sunshine Prepper out.
That one cracked me up. Biden on a bike. I mean, that was great. And yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed that. I really enjoy. I challenged Willow a couple of months ago to come up with something. What she wanted to figure out a way to monetize her sunshine. And this is her way, by working her way through some of the less than ideal stories that come out on the news, and hopefully giving you both solutions and perhaps a funny little look at the news. So there you go. All right.
If anyone dies while you are kept in your fallout room, move the body to another room in the
The
hut.
time has come. Stranger than fiction.
Now this is the section, the segment that started all of this. This was when Becky and I would first originally take a look at some of the odd news stories that are out there. And there's some good ones this week. I've saved up some of the cream of the crop for you guys to take a look at. But the first one, I'm sure you have heard about by now, and that's OpenAI. And they have started a video generator. First it was chat, then it was photo, now it's video. OpenAI's video generator, Sora, is breathtaking, yet terrifying. You got to love the news headlines. Fear sells, right? We talk about in prepping that folks quite often come to the idea of being prepared out of something they're scared shitless out of. And hopefully we can talk them down off the ledge and they can look at it as a purpose in life, not something that scares the living daylights out of them. And again, all of these new technologies, they have the capacity for both good and evil. Will some folks use them for bad? Hell yeah, they will. Can we exploit them and use them for good? I hope so. Let's take a look. OpenAI introduced Sora this week, its premier text-to-video generator, on Thursday, with beautiful, shockingly realistic videos showcasing the AI's model's capabilities. Okay, perfect. We know that much. They put it out there. It's not available for you or I to use yet, but they're letting some, sounds like content creators and a few other folks play around with it. They're enjoying it. Here we go. Here comes, we're not even one paragraph in. which could spell disaster for the film industry and our collective deep fake problem. Yep, it could, but it's going to happen either way. So we need to embrace it. Oh, the humanity back when there used to be an elevator assistant or an elevator dude. You'd open up the door, you'd go in and he'd push the buttons for you. Imagine the humanity when they all lost their jobs. I get it, right? It happens. This is part of a free economy where technology comes out, old jobs go away, new jobs come in, and it's painful at that time. All right. Now, as far as this entire project, you guys should take a look at it. It's pretty intriguing. There's a video here dealing with woolly mammoths, which look pretty cool. The first one I saw, if we can find it here, was a movie trailer. Right there. There's a movie trailer with a spaceman that has a red knitted helmet on. These videos would have taken hours to produce by a real film crew or animators. Actually, probably more than that. Sora will likely be disruptive to the film industry in the same way that ChatGPT and AI image generators have shocked the editorial and design world. It's a technology that is both remarkable and yet frightening in terms of job security for video content creators. So I look at this stuff as something that will benefit folks who create content with a message. And what do I mean by that? I mean, if you're out there sharing truths about the world, whether it's, how much long-term food storage you need or, silver and gold, that sort of thing. If you're pushing truths to folks, this is going to be the thing that is going to speed up the background process. This is going to level the playing field. And now anybody out there is going to be able to have high quality B-roll footage that they don't have to spend a metric shit ton for. And it's going to bring the little guy on pace, on par with Hollywood studios. And guess who that scares? The high paying union Hollywood jobs. I hate to say it, but that's where it comes from. This kind of technology definitely can level the playing field. Will it? I'm not sure. All right. And if you notice this is highlighted in green, there's a reason for it. OpenAI says it will build tools to help detect misleading content as well as apply existing technologies that reject harmful text prompts. Don't know if anybody happened to see this, but last week, the Google AI image generating platform was putting out non-racially correct images. They were basically making them woke, for lack of a better term, and they had to shut it down because it wasn't historically accurate. So these are the kind of safeguards that companies put into things to protect us from ourselves. These are the little lines that give me fear, that scare me just ever so slightly, because who decides which safeguards get put into place? Who decides which standards those safeguards are built upon? And who decides which standards are enforced against which individuals, right? That's what kind of bothers me. So, but like I said, it's going to level the playing field for small and large creators. I like that. Now, look at the copywriters. The death rattle was hollered last year. They said, that's it. ChatGPT is going to kill the copywriting industry. Well, you know what it's going to do? It's probably going to kill the folks who were doing subpar work, who are just, basically doing SEO-based blog posts. That sucks. I get it. It always sucks when your work, your livelihood starts moving by. But guess what? Some companies are starting to pay a premium for human written content. And a lot of the people who initially lost clients because of ChatGPT, folks are coming back to them in droves. So this does not mean that it is the death rattle for video and content creation. No, it's another tool to put into our arsenal to end up working in our benefit. That's what I love. Love it. All right. The main thing I like about this is I guess you would call it time saving for content creators. So if you don't follow, or if you haven't heard what I use, a lot of my shorts are created via AI. So when I'm done this episode tonight, I will throw this full hour and a half episode into Opus.Pro, OPUS.Pro. And in about 10 minutes, they'll send me an email and they'll have 30 odd shorts ready for me. And I set the parameters. So I have, my color, my theme, all of that. And then I can check a little box that says insert B-roll. And I love the B-roll because it breaks up this talking head. Nobody wants to see me for 60 seconds in a row. So right now they've been using kind of free generic B-roll that they have access to. But in the next couple of weeks, they're getting ready to implement AI generated B-roll. The sky's the limit. So again, what's going to be great about that is you're not going to have 10,000 creators pulling from the same pool all the time. You're not going to have AI generated video that goes specifically with whatever content you're creating. And I love it. So now another thought about this, whether you're working for someone else or you're a freelancer, I think this kind of story is a good reminder for all of us to build redundancy into our entrepreneurial platform. So it's just like us. Our big money maker by a mile is daycares, but we also have property management. We have content creation. We have the properties that we own ourselves. So, would it hurt if we lost the daycares? Absolutely it would. But it's all about, again, redundancies. So, if everything a year ago, if all you did was write, surface level SEO based or affiliate based blog posts for people, you might have been in trouble. But if you'd have branched out and had 3 or 4 different specialties, it might not have been such a big deal. So for me, again, use this not as something to be scared of. Use it to embrace and say, okay, how can I use this to make money? How can I use this to improve what I do? And how can I stay on the leading edge or the cutting edge of whatever's going on? Doesn't have to be scary. Just have to embrace it. Just have to be a step or two ahead of the hoarding masses. That's the way I look at it. So let me know what you guys think, because in my opinion, I'm never scared of new technology. I'm just scared of how some folks are going to use it. Let's take a look at the comments we have here. One Step Closer says, good, Hollywood's making mainly garbage these days anyway. And in regards to the harmful text prompts being banned, One Step Closer says, so no horror movies then. Maybe not. Who knows? I don't know. But it's interesting. I enjoy seeing this new technology. I love being alive in a time when stuff that, as a little kid watching the original Star Trek reruns at supper time in Digby, Nova Scotia, I wouldn't even have thought were possible. And now this stuff is just wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, coming out as fast as you can absolutely believe it. So, all right, this next one's kind of a cool story. I don't know if you saw it. It's definitely a surface level story from USA Today, but Sylvester Stallone hired Navy SEALs to train his daughters before they moved to New York City. Well, the first piece of advice I'm going to give to Sly is maybe your daughter shouldn't move to New York City, but I'm not going to begrudge anyone who wants to go somewhere. Number one, that's where we're going to start with that, okay? But it did get me thinking, because I've been thinking a lot lately about my daughters, the youngest, the last of the household, that are going to be moving out in 4 years. Just over 4 years are going to be graduating high school. And I've read my fair share of fiction, prepper fiction, especially for, there's 2 or 3 storylines that follow it happens to usually be a daughter who's away at college, and the mom and dad have put together a plan for them to get home if something ever goes sideways. Hopefully it never does, but this kind of made me think. So let's look into what a rich Hollywood dad would do for his kids to make sure they were safe in the crazy city that I would hope my kids wouldn't move to, but I can't promise. So Sly Stallone had his daughters go through their own kind of rocky training. The Rambo star's daughters revealed in an interview with the New York Post that their dad hired Navy SEALs to train them before they moved to New York City because he was worried about them living there. Stallone's daughters said, this doesn't sound particularly out of step with the way Stallone's daughters were raised. They told the Post that since they were young, their dad subjected them to military-style self-defense trainings. And Sophia added that their father would have them through a rigorous routine every day at 6 a.m. involving sit-ups, push-ups, pull-ups, and more. So it looks to me like this is a dude who thinks the world of his daughters, knows the world is a scary place, knows that New York City especially is probably not the best place in the world for young ladies to move. And he did his absolute damnedest to make sure that they were prepared, that they could, if some scary crackhead or Hare Krishna jumped out and wanted to put a bracelet on her arm, she'll know how to throw him up and over the shoulder. And they said here at the bottom, Sophia said, it also helps that mom tracks us on the Find My Friends app so they know where we are. we use that with our guys. You know, when they're adults, they can turn it off if they want to. Becky and I use it with each other as well, so we know when we're going to get home and that sort of thing. Again, it's a technology that can be used for the good and for the bad. But don't just use it without telling somebody you're using it. That becomes really bad territory. But if you're worried, you say, hey, you know, I'm going to be worried about you. Do you mind if I find my iPhone once in a while and see where my daughter is to make sure she's not in a ditch somewhere? And they say no, respect it. But if they say yes, that's okay too. But I liked it. So this is one of those things. Like I said, my girls, they're going to move away in 4 years. And this sort of prep starts when your kids are born. Because when we have kids, I mean, I've always heard it said that the number one rule of survival is to stay alive. Well, there's going to come a point in our lifetime that we're going to break that rule. And when we do, our prepping and survival journey is over. The only way to keep our survival and prepper journey going beyond our own lifetime is by raising our kids right and by teaching them how to be prepared and to deal with a world that may or may not get squirrely at times. So for us, it's about making our kids feel empowered, not afraid. That's the big one. It's about, from day one, teaching them how to do simple things. Olivia and Grace, especially when they were just little, they learned how to do laundry. I think they were 7 years old and they were able to completely do the laundry system. Olivia, I taught her how to change her tires, how to check her oil. Grace is so self-sufficient. That girl, every year we get her tools for Christmas. She gets this big smile on her face. She called me up the other night and I helped her go through and troubleshoot her furnace with her headlamp over FaceTime. She was able to do absolutely everything. She just needed a little bit of advice. So number one, right from day one, when our kids are little, teaching them all the skills that we hope they need to know to live in a world, unfortunately, like New York City, or Charlotte talks all the time about going to London, England. That makes me nervous because there ain't much I can do if she's across the pond going to university there. But the best I can do is equip her to be the strongest, most independent young lady that I can so that they can handle a crazy world when and if we're not here anymore. And I love it. So it's interesting to take a look at somebody like Sylvester Stallone, who also it's in our nature to take care of our kids, but we may not all be able to afford to hire, former Navy SEALs or Green Berets to take our kids on an urban survival training session or anything like that. But what we can do is take the time and teach our kids how to survive in the world that we know, and hopefully so they can adapt to the world that they are going to move into and inherit. So having a plan for when your kids are moving away, give them the tools, the training, and most importantly, the knowledge that if shit ever does go sideways, they can come home if something happens. Empower them, set them up. You don't have to go to the extreme extent of, I believe it was the Locker 7 or Locker 9 series that I read where, he gave her a secret key and she had a cool storage locker with guns and diesel and food. I mean, great. I would love to do that. I ain't lying. Maybe a little, I don't know. Anyway, I'd love to do that. But for each of us, it's all about empowering our children to hopefully live the preparedness lifestyle and just, just teaching them the things. They don't have to grow up to call themselves a prepper. They can even joke about mom and dad being, the crazy survivalist with the toilet paper cupboard. But when push comes to shove and times get tough, they can look after themselves. And that's what I love. Now, next story I got for you guys. This is one I think you're going to appreciate. And this 100% falls into the category of stranger than fiction. These are the type of stories that inspired this segment way back when we first started it. This comes from gizmodo.com and it is great. Before I go any further, Bonnie Blue, thank you very much. Locker 9, Grace Under Fire by Franklin Horton. Had Franklin on the show. Him and I are both going to be at the Mountain Readiness Festival in Harmony, North Carolina in May. I'm going to get to sit down and do an in-person interview with him. I'm stoked about that. So yeah, there you go. You guys ready for this headline? Oh boy. 200-foot tall radio tower mysteriously vanishes in Alabama. I really thought it was going to say Florida. I know, right? You're going to make fun of Florida's again. But here it is. Stealing is bad, okay? That was a South Park reference there, just so you know. The theft took place in Jasper, Alabama, where unknown thieves recently ransacked a local radio station, stealing everything in sight. Yep, including a 200-foot stainless steel radio tower that was cut down and carted off via unknown means. Guess what? I'm going to take a guess. I'm going to pretend like I know what those means were, and I'm going to bet they involve strapping them down to the roof of a 1993 Dodge Grand Caravan or hauling that sucker behind a pedal bike. One or the other, because either of those seem to be the transportation of choice by crackheads. We love crackheads. Crackheads strike again, don't they? You know what? This also happened to the AM radio station, AVR, Annapolis Valley Radio in Digby, where I grew up, and it never reopened because here's the thing. Radio stations are a prime target for ne'er-do-wells because most of them are unmanned at this point. They just act as a relay point. And so local news outlet WBRC first reported on the theft, which impacted the local AM station. The station manager, Brett Elmore, first learned of the theft last Friday when a group of landscapers who were sent to work the property reported back that it had been robbed and the radio tower was missing. Here's my sad thought about this is nobody even noticed that the AM radio station was off the air. It took the landscapers showing up to do work there. So that probably says more about the state of AM radio than anything. It's sad. I have a soft spot in my heart for AM talk radio. I always have. But this is a reminder, guys, to do due diligence in protecting the things that are important. Things that maybe sit out somewhere, we become blind to them because they've just always been there. And again, it's like our generator. I talk about making generators during a power outage a hard target, putting behind a fence, chaining them down. And when it comes down to it, there's going to come times that crackheads are just going to crackhead and they're going to take, they're going to take your running generator while it's plugged into the house. They're just going to take some, lopping pliers. They're going to cut them off and they're going to haul them away anyway, right? And that's what sucks. So if this isn't a reminder to have high quality, good insurance, I don't know what is. And if somebody out there is listening to this and they say insurance isn't a prep, I call bullshit, because it is. Insurance, roadside assistance, medical plans that pay for your prescriptions, all of those are the most practical thing we can have for prepping. I love it. Just recently, Becky was at the vet yesterday or the day before. We have a brand new vet that's about 15 minutes away. Somebody broke their window, went through their front window, grabbed their float, their cash box out of the drawer, and was back out in 15 seconds. And you know what? They had an alarm system. They had 1080p high definition cameras. They got fingerprints off of the cash register, and none of that mattered because whoever this was figured the $100 in float cash was worth it to them. And it's not going to matter. So again, you can have all of the safeguards in the world. Sometimes it's just not going to matter. So for me, this is a great illustration of the need to have insurance if you think it's going to worth it for you. Also, one other thought for anything like this. Now, this is a really funny illustration of this, but have pictures or video of anything that's of import to you. Something I did a couple years ago. I need to redo it now since the business has changed. But take a walk around video and just film absolutely everything you own. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to throw it up on a Google Drive or anything like that, but keep it on a USB in a safe or something so that if you ever need to have a fight with your insurance company, you have proof to say, listen, all this stuff was there. So reimburse me, darn it. All right. And the last piece of news story this week, and I couldn't go without mentioning this. Last Sunday evening, Becky was on with me. We had a great episode. Loved it. We did a kind of a freestyle toward the end where we just talked about different news stories that folks had brought up. And if you guys haven't heard about Argentina's new president, wow, it's an interesting story. Just going to pop back over to the comments for a second before we slide on anymore. Byron Roberts says, keep that video in 2 locations. You are correct, brother. I learned a ton of what I know about prepping from a few sources. And one of the dudes was Stephen Harris. He used to come on the Survival Podcast all the time. One of his favorite sayings was security through obscurity. I'm a big fan of that. You know, I take and I back up all of my pertinent documents, and then I just put them in some innocuously named file on a password protected folder on Google Drive. Some people might say, oh, Tim, that's not safe. Well, you're probably right. Some of that isn't safe in some places, but for me, that is way better than having it somewhere that I can't access it. I've been able to use it multiple occasions, and it's got me out of some hoopy situations simply because I had access to information that I wouldn't have without calling somebody or downloading something somewhere. Bonnie Blue says most AM stations have also purchased FM stations as a parallel. Absolutely. And to be honest, most people probably listen to the FM counterpart, because if you listen to them, FM is clearer, it's more robust, it doesn't tend to do that kind of wax and wane sound that AM radio does. But still, it's funny that nobody anywhere, no little old lady who listens on AM talk radio, called in to say, well, my AM radio station's not on anymore. I wonder what happened. Billy, could you go over and check and see if that radio tower's still up? I mean, nobody thinks to do that, of course, right? But still, rather interesting. And Bonnie Blue says, my cellular game cameras upload to the cloud and on the scan disk. Yep, I like that too. My Wi-Fi cameras do the same thing. All right. Argentina's new president, this is from theconversation.com, presses ahead with economic shock therapy as social unrest grows. Guys, this is an interesting... All right. This dude he's more than a libertarian. He's an anarcho-capitalist. And if you aren't familiar with that term, it's basically the ultimate idea in the economy is free market interactions amongst individuals, and basically let the market do what it does. So anarchy as in no rules or regulations whatsoever, and let folks interact, value for value exchange. I love the concept. It really hasn't been done in a large population in our lifetime. I don't think this will be the closest we've seen happen. The thing is, it's going to get uncomfortable over there for a little while. Argentina's new president, Javier Milei, seems to be making good on his promise to put a chainsaw to the country's crisis-ridden economy. In his inaugural address, he told the nation there is no alternative to shock. You ready for this? This is kind of funny. He dissolved, half the country's ministries days later and implemented a 50% devaluation of the peso. But amid massive spending cuts, you ready for this? Argentina's annual rate of inflation has reached a 3-decade high of 254%. 254% inflation over 3 decades, or a 3-decade high. That's an annual rate of inflation. He blames the poor economy on years of mismanagement and has warned his compatriots to expect more pain before any gains will be felt. Whew. That's got to be a tough... There is a photo, if you want to see it, of him when he's campaigning for the presidency, carrying a big chainsaw saying, I'm going to chop things down. And he is doing it. He looks like he is draining the swamp. His plan to dollarize the currency, which some dismissed as mere electoral strategy, now seems likely to come sooner than expected. And if you wonder what that means, it basically means he's going to get rid of the Argentino peso and allow the Argentina economy to run off the U.S. dollar. It's an interesting concept. I'd love to see how it happens. Here's a couple of things he has to deal with. He's got a comparatively weak political position because he doesn't have a majority in what they call their Congress. Also, it's unclear how much of Argentina's population is prepared to support his measures, as memory of the crisis looms close in the public imagination. Here's what I want to share with you guys right here. Labor, it's in green, so if it's in green, you know what happened, right? Labor organizations and trade unions have provided the largest resistance. No shit. I wonder why. Because they tend to work the least and have the highest paying jobs, and they want to protect their good old boy network and say, but we make our money. We deserve it. This entire story kind of reminds me of, if you've ever read 299 Days of Glenn Tate and the slow collapse that happens in Washington State, where they're like, we need to make cuts. We need to make cuts. And every time they want to make a cut, the folks who are making the big bucks in those cushy government appointed jobs say, no, we can't cut our money. We can't cut our pensions. Well, everybody's got to do something somewhere. The cool thing is, if you were self-employed and had your own business, other than the massive inflation, this kind of stuff isn't going to affect you. In some ways, it's probably going to make it easier for you to do business. But the folks who maybe haven't made it into the positions based on merit are going to be the ones who do the largest wah-wah-wah. Millet has already introduced massive spending cuts, including a reduction of salaries and pensions via both inflation and suspending funding to subnational governments to pay salaries and subsidies. He's also launched an ambitious project to reset the Argentine economy, which includes the privatization of all, oh, I love that. Man, that gets me excited. The privatization of all public companies, liberalization of trade, and deregulation of labor. Holy shit, wouldn't people lose their ever-loving collective minds if we did this in North America? I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. I really hope something good from this can happen. My biggest concern is how painful this is going to be for the folks. Because it is. Anytime, what do they say? The only person that likes change is a dirty baby. So anytime things change, it hurts. You have growing pains. People are going to lose money. He's trying to stave off, it's like putting a tourniquet onto a gushing leg wound or an arm wound. It ain't going to be comfortable for a while, but you got to do it in order to stop the bleeding. And the fact that he's divesting public companies and turning them private, all of this just gets me excited. I cannot wait to see what would happen. And one step closer, he just knows how to push my buttons, folks, because here it is. And he knows what gets me excited. This is one step closer. Just think if Canadian Post was privatized. Exactly. I say all the time that we could wake up tomorrow and you could privatize Canada Post, and within a week, all the private companies out there would pick up what little bit of mail Canada Post couldn't handle. Right now, 99% of all the mail that comes to us is parcels. And just as much of it comes to our house as goes through Canada Post. If I had the option to click a little box on Amazon that said, please ship to my dooryard and not to my post office box, I would do it. But they don't give me that option, at least that I'm aware of. If they do, I will do it. But what does that leave? All that leaves is this tiny little pile of mail. So Becky was gone we were both gone for 4 days last week. I go to the post office. I bring all our parcels home. I bring home a stack of useless envelopes like that. I come home a couple hours later. Becky's opened them all. She said, you know what? That entire stack, there wasn't anything in there that we needed. Nothing. So what does that tell you about the state of public companies in Canada? And they used to like to say, well, Canada Post is semi-privatized, and well, it's not. And it makes money. Well, it doesn't anymore. So there you go. I'm just excited. I cannot wait to see this. In my lifetime, I didn't even expect that an anarcho-capitalist could even come to power in a major population base. It's going to be a pretty cool case study on whether or not this will actually work. And like I said, my biggest concern is how painful it's going to be for the people, and hopefully it doesn't turn them off from this concept. Man, it is just, it's kind of neat. And the biggest opponents, once again, are the high-paid unions and government employees. And if you look at these kind of stories, this is yet another reason to diversify your financial base. So again, it's a good reason to have, 5% in silver and gold, 5 or 10% in outside currencies. If I was in Argentina, I'd probably look at the US dollar and think, you know what, if I want to make sure that this 100,000 pesos or what I have right now doesn't get devalued another 20% tomorrow, I'm probably going to turn a lot of it into American dollars. Another way to protect yourself. So these are the type of things we pay attention to the news. You look at what's coming. You try to make your best predictions based on your gut feeling and the most information you can get. And then you create decisive, instant action based on that. All right, let's take a look at what the fellow delinquents had to say in the comments here. So One Step Closer said that Argentina's president, his predecessor, printed a bunch of money during the election. Imagine that. I've never heard of politicians printing money during the election. Unreal. Rachel says, I came in to say hi and good night. Have to work tomorrow. Always great to have you, Rachel Brown. Love seeing you. Ellen Kerr, our friend from Down Under, said, watch his speech at the World Economic Forum. So very good. I haven't seen it yet, but I will give it a shot. Rachel Brown's prediction is he's going to be assassinated. I think we call that unalive now, if you use TikTok parlance. And One Step and Rachel both say, I hope he stays alive. I'd love to see what happens. I'm looking forward to seeing whether he can put his money where his mouth is. He can go principles over preference, and he can say, I'm going to do this come hell or high water. Everybody hold on. It's going to be one hell of a ride, but if you stick with me, we're going to come out the other side way more financially secure, because we just don't need government, do we? We really, truly don't, but there you go. All right. So what do we got next for you? This one is kind of cool. So I renamed this. I was calling this Spotlight, Side Hustle Spotlight. We're now going to call it Finding Freedom. And if you go back to the opening of our show, creating community, finding freedom, promoting preparedness, and sharing success. For me, the idea behind Finding Freedom is building a business, building multi-businesses, having self-reliance. And so sometimes these are going to be funny stories. Sometimes these are going to be the idea of a side hustle you could develop. And this week, we're going to share a story from Giant Freaking Robot all about selling empty boxes to kids at Christmas time. Yep, I said it. Empty boxes to Christmas at Christmas time. This is a case study in a company knowing they need to sell something, knowing there is a market so hot they'll buy empty boxes simply for the promise that they're going to get something down the road. Star Wars made millions selling children boxes of nothing. What a great headline that is. I love it. You ready for this? Kenner had no Star Wars toys ready to go in 1977, Christmas. As it rolled around, what was their solution? Let's sell an empty box to the kids instead. Yep, that's what they did. Poor Kenner knew they weren't going to have any things on the shelves for 1977 holiday season, and they were going to lose out on a small fortune. And they knew the first batch of figures would be ready early the following year. So they devised a plan to stall the children until then. Again, I kind of like this. This Nintendo coming up, they have the Switch 2 coming out. I think they were supposed to have it for Christmas 2024. And now it looks like it's going to be a little later into the year. It's going to be interesting to see how they bridge the holiday season for that. So what did they come up with? They come up with the early bird certificate. The Star Wars early bird certificate package was essentially an IOU. It was, but it was added value. Check it out. It consisted of I love this, a nearly empty box that contained a cardboard display stand, some stickers, a fan club membership, and most importantly, a certificate for Star Wars figures. So they looked at this and they thought, oh man, we can make some money off this. We absolutely can. We know that the hot toy this year, if we could get it to market, is going to be Star Wars toys. And if we don't, by 78, we might not be on the bandwagon anymore. So they looked quick and they're like, what can we print? Well, we can print an IOU certificate. We can print a cardboard display box, and we can print a fan club membership. And how about some stickers? Let's put it all together. Let's sell it and say, hey, I know you want these toys. We're working hard to build them. They're going to be ready for you in a little bit. Very much an early Kickstarter model, hey? Interesting. A kid could mail the certificate in for 4 action figures to Kenner, and a few months later, Kenner would actually mail the Star Wars toys back to the kid. The Star Wars early bird certificate packages sold like hotcakes. I don't know. Do hotcakes really? I'd love to know the origin of that saying, because, you know, I like pancakes, but I don't love them enough to stand in line or buy them a certificate for them 4 months ahead of time and get them in the mail. I'm just saying, right? It was all Kenner could do to keep them on the shelves. And so eventually, the early bird certificate packages were still an oddity for the time. The idea of getting an empty box for Christmas sounds laughable now, but at the time, it was one of the most ingenious marketing schemes ever conjured up by a toy manufacturer. I don't think it sounds laughable whatsoever. I think it would still fly today. The thing is that companies are a lot more proactive now, and they're willing to take a chance and say, hey, we got this big movie coming up. We're going to build a bunch of merchandise ahead of time. So yeah, I love it. I think it's friggin' genius. I hope somebody somewhere gets inducted into the Toy Hall of Fame simply for selling that. All right, let's take a look at the comments here. Ellen Kerr says, my plan is to open a cat boarding business. I love that idea, Ellen. Becky and I have talked about that. That might actually be, we're always dipping our toes into 100 different entrepreneurial ventures. but that absolutely could be one of our retirement businesses, is having a dog boarding or pet boarding place for sure. We've talked about it. We've thought about setting one up here in town, and we may eventually do just that. And since I asked, the community responded. Rachel C. says, allegedly, the phrase selling faster than hotcakes or hotter, the phrase originated in the 1800s when simple cornmeal versions were sold at church bake sales and snapped up by the congregation before they went cold. That makes sense. Rachel C. says, I've never seen a hotcake. Well, if you go through McDonald's before the breakfast rush ends, I believe they still call their pancakes hotcakes. I don't know. They ain't much, I'll tell you that. They remind me, Becky and I stayed at this not so nice hotel this last time. We've been trying different hotels in the city where the daycare is, and this one didn't really live up to its expectations. And they had this little machine that you just pushed a button and it dropped pancake batter, and then it brought it out through a conveyor belt. It looked cool, but it didn't turn out. They weren't really that great. Tim Riley says they stand in line in Nashville every day at the Pancake Pantry. Shit is wild. Never heard of that in my life. Interesting. All right, what do we got next for you? Here we go.
He's dead. They're all dead. Everyone. You and I are in a dead world. And I'm glad it's dead. Honky tonk.
Coming up next is Workshop Wasteland.
All right, so this one is where we take a look at post-apocalyptic pop culture, movies, video games, books, whatever fits in this segment. It seems to be something. We actually have a Telegram group called Workshop Wasteland where we talk about all things popular culture. It's a fun area of respite for us where we can let down our prepper hair and talk about things that aren't necessarily so serious all the time. Not much to share this week, just a couple of bite-sized pieces of news. But if you're into the Terminator world, which I have been for many years, there's an open world Terminator survival game finally set for reveal. This is from IGN.com. It looks really interesting. Namco announced the as yet untitled Terminator game all the way back in 2022. It's in the works at the studio. It takes place, this is probably my favorite thing right here. It takes place in an open world set between the events of Judgment Day, the Skynet nuclear strike that causes the apocalypse. And for those who don't remember, in the second Terminator 2, she has that flash of standing on the chain link fence and getting burned up. And then in Terminator 3, if you consider that canon, the spoiler alert for a 20-year-old movie, the nuclear fallout actually happens. So it happens between that and the formation of John Connor's Resistance. You play as a group of nuclear apocalypse survivors fighting to stay alive. Yep, I want to play this. Big time. Namco said at the time the Terminator game features an original story that draws upon the events portrayed in the movies. The cinematic teaser trailer revealed a T-800 hunting someone in a warehouse with the iconic, I'm not even going to try to do it, original Terminator theme blaring in the background. Man, do I ever wish that I could play trailers on this show. I just can't, because if I do, I'm going to get hit with a copyright strike. I got to figure out a way to do it that plays within the rules, because it's YouTube's platform and I have to live with it, right? Spags Unfiltered. Good to see you, brother Bobby. He says the Fallout video game series rules all. I haven't played Fallout. My son has played it religiously. I'm rather stoked. They're putting out a full-length TV series. I believe it's on Amazon Prime of the Fallout video game. Comes out in April. I think if we can do it, Becky and I are going to do weekly reviews like we did with The Last of Us. Rachel C. says, if AI continues apace, the whole world will be the open world Terminator game. Amen. You're not wrong. I know we joke, but what else can we do? Sometimes we just have to sit back and laugh, don't we? Not really. We can prepare. All right. And the second piece of post-apocalyptic Workshop Wasteland comes from the HollywoodReporter.com. Civil War trailer, new footage as Alex Garland's American Apocalypse. If you haven't seen this yet, do yourself a favor, go out and watch this trailer. It looks really, really good. I am excited for this film. This is the dude who actually was the co-writer on the original 28 Days Later. He's done a bunch of top-notch films since. Now, love it or hate it, I'm going to tell you right now that some of the politics in this movie will probably piss you off. And I don't care, because you can still watch something and be entertained by it and not agree with messages behind it. So there we are. But This looks really cool. This is the second piece. I don't even know where they're going with it because Texas and California are on the same side. I think this has the potential to be a modern Red Dawn. I mean, I know. Am I speaking heresy here? I probably am. I get it. But do yourself a favor, go out and watch this trailer. It's a lot of fun. I'm excited about the film. It really does have shades of Red Dawn in its own way. Don't expect to agree with the politics because I'm sure we won't. I'm sure whoever, because it ain't going to be an apocalypse or an anarchist political bent, that's for sure. But go into this looking at what somebody's vision of what a modern kind of breakdown of society, civil war will look like. Now, my one word of caution is in this second trailer, I noticed that some of the war effects, is that the right term? I assume they're special effects, the explosions and things like that are subpar. And I hope they're just not finished for this movie that I believe comes out in April as well. So take that with a grain of salt. Let me know what you think. But I am definitely looking forward to Alex Garland getting what I believe is an $80 million budget. It's an A24 film, which tend to sit with very small budgets. Cautiously optimistic. Moving right along. One Step Closer says, great memes already. What kind of American are you? The memes will flood the internet out of this movie. I have my suspicions. I hope it makes bank. I hope it does really well because it will open the floodgates for tons of clones, whatever you want to call it. But anyway, it looks good. Rachel C says, absolutely. You might find me on opening night with some wacky red glasses. Yes, that's what it is. It's okay to enjoy something and not be offended by it because shit. Anyway, I'm just going to go off on the tangent because the entire modern society just get their panties in a knot over absolutely everything. It's okay to go out and watch a film like this and say, holy shit, this is cool. This is fun. It is willing suspension of disbelief. I can learn shit from it and I don't have to agree with the filmmaker. So hopefully that's where we end up. I hope it doesn't become one of those, points in time where both sides argue over things. It very well could, but I'm not going to let it be. I'm going to let it stand or fall on the merits of it being artistic expression. And I'll give you a review of it. And hopefully, if Becky and I can time it out right, while we're down in Tennessee, we'll do it then. It'll be good. Bonnie Blue, I love you coming in here. You are always a breath of fresh air in our community. Bonnie has the way of giving her opinion and stating it in a very succinct, loving way. And Bonnie Blue just said 5 words: being offended is a choice. I can't say it any better than that. Remember that, folks. Damn, that should be one of my rules to live by. I love it. Being offended is a choice. That statement offends me, Bonnie Blue, but thank you for sharing it. All right, what do we got next for you, folks? All right, here we go. We have, one of my favorite, the Cookbook of the Collapse. Now, I don't have it up on the screen for you, but this week is, again, I really want to get some more recipes from you guys. I've been sharing a lot of what I have. And Letty Lou was nice enough to set up, this is my own failure. I don't have the link right now, but if you come by the Telegram group, we can share it over there. She set up a form where you can submit recipes. And I just want simple, they can be family, just recipes that you like that you could make out of your preps. So this week, and the reason we did this one is because Becky and I have been talking about freeze drying mushroom soup. We love Campbell's cream and mushroom soup. We use it in so many recipes. And I've been reading up on the ability to freeze dry it. It looks like it's doable for sure. So, Cookbook of the Collapse. Scallop potatoes. This is what Becky and I do. Well, she does. I watch. I help. Sliced potatoes. Around 1/4 of an inch to 1/8 of an inch. Yeah, probably about 1/4 of an inch thick. Slice them. Fill a layer of a 9x11 casserole dish. You're going to need 4 cans of mushroom soup, a little bit of flour, some onion powder, some salt and pepper. And you're going to layer potatoes, soup, onion, flour, potato soup, onion, flour. Just go all the way up till it's the top. Then you're going to dump a bunch more soup on top, make it like a gravy. You don't have to add a lot of water to your mushroom soup. You're going to cover it with tin foil. You're going to bake it 350 until it's soft, and then you're going to sit down and you're going to enjoy it. And so we're going to look at freeze drying entire portions of scallop potatoes and also the ingredients to make scallop potatoes, because just about everything in that will store beautifully when freeze dried. So that's definitely one of our favorites. Yeah. Oh, I like it. All right. Next is This Week in the Workshop. And if you guys like these stinger transitions, if you're wondering, if you want to know the movies they come from, that sort of thing, they've all come from old apocalyptic dystopian movies that, you know, a lot of them have a warm spot in my heart. So I wanted to pick these kind of random clips that sounded cool, and then, you know, an intro to it. So if you like it, there'll be more of them. I'd love to have one for every segment that I do here. And if you guys have any suggestions for clips to use, that is one thing that a person can use freely on YouTube without getting copyright strikes, is transformative small clips of audio and video from movies. So there you go. This Week in the Workshop, this is where I share what we've been up to, the things that I've gotten done in my life, for two reasons. One, hopefully to inspire you guys to share what you've done, and also to force me into accountability. Because if I come on here and I say, oh, guys, you know what I did this week? I played one game of mini golf, and the rest of the week I sat in my lawn chair and I drank old fashions. Now, that might be fine for a summer vacation, although I don't think I could actually do that. But if I was doing that week in and week out, I'd hope you'd be a little bit worried about me. All right, so as far as property management goes, I went over last week. I installed a new doorknob. I fixed a water main drip. I got really lucky on this one, folks. A lot of times, if you guys know if you don't know the difference between a gate valve and a ball valve, a gate valve is your typical outdoor tap. It's got a round handle and you got to go turn it a bunch of times until it turns off. And eventually the rubbers inside start stripping, or the packing gets old and they start dripping like a bugger. Whereas ball valves are basically hollowed out ball, for lack of a better term, usually brass, and they have a quarter turn handle. And those things, as long as you keep moving them every, once a year or something, they will last almost an eternity. Well, guess what? Most of the ones around here, the old water mains in the basement, are gate valves. And I went into a property the other day and it was dripping quite bad. And of course, if it's your water main, the only way to repair or replace that is to have the town come in and shut off the water at the corner. So I got lucky and I was able to tighten down the packing behind it and it stopped dripping. I was quite worried that if I cranked on it too hard, it wouldn't be timber-proof and I'd be in trouble. So the freeze drying report this week, I actually got a lot done considering I wasn't home for most of the week. I did a batch of freeze-dried chocolate milk, which the powder tastes good, but it did not reconstitute with water whatsoever. I got to come up with an idea. I'm thinking maybe an immersion blender. I don't know, but I have the finished product. I'm going to test it. If anybody's had any luck, let me know. We did ground beef. Coming up in the next couple of weeks, you'll probably see a video on a deep dive in the time and cost involved in freeze drying and whether it's actually worth it. Started right from the beginning, and I weighed everything before it was cooked, after it was cooked, before it was freeze dried, after it was freeze dried. Look at the entire process, and we're going to see how much money do you actually save compared to buying Mountain House or Algerson Farms and that sort of thing. So that was a lot of fun. And then most recently, I did breakfast sausage links. They're good. You have to be careful. I don't think the life will be as long as, say, a really dry meat like ground beef, for instance. But fry them up, kind of rub the sausage with paper towel to get as much of the grease off as you can, and then put them in the freeze dryer and then wipe them down again with paper towel to get any of the grease or fat off. And that's going to help extend the life. But those sausage look as good as they came out of the oven. So can't wait to try it out. Byron Roberts says a powered milk frother. Oh my God, try to say that 10 times fast. Might help. That's a good suggestion. I'll give it a shot, Byron. All right. This week's video it was a bit different. There is nothing I love more than making a video based on the suggestion of folks in the community. And Chris Dixon sent me a text a couple of weeks ago and he said, hey, you've been talking about your long-term dry goods storage. What does that entail? And I said, well, guess what? I'm going to do a video on that since you asked. And wow, that video has blown up. It has been my top trending video ever, I think, in the first week. So we'll see. It's just about at 1,000 views since Wednesday, and it is not showing any signs of letting down. So A good combination of a question the community asks, good search engine optimization, good topic, and putting together a good quality end product seems to be working really, really well. I've got some comments in the audience here. Rachel C. says, have you ever tried freeze drying whole raw chicken breasts? I saw them online, but even pounded to an even thickness, and it was a big fail. So I'm going to be honest. I have no interest in freeze drying raw product. This is just me, and take it for what it's worth. I just don't see the benefit in it because, oh, thank you, Bonnie Blue. Guys, thank you, Bonnie. She just sent a super sticker for $19.99 American. Anyway, thank you. That just makes me smile. I love it, guys. You know, I love doing this, and this is absolutely one of those instances where I say you can make money and help people too. My first love of anything that I teach on is prepping. So thank you, Bonnie Blue. I really appreciate that. That means a lot. So back to Rachel C's question. Have you ever tried freeze drying whole raw chicken breasts? No, I haven't. I probably never will. And the main reason, like I said, is the freeze drying is for a couple things. It's either for really long-term storage to add proteins and maybe a little bit of fat into our dry goods storage. And number two, it's for travel and ease of being able to heat something up quickly and eat it. I just don't see for me personally, the need to introduce raw product that I then have to reconstitute, that I have to be careful with on the other end, and then I need to cook. That's all. So no, I haven't. I probably won't. But Rachel, if you do it again, I would love to hear about your experience. And maybe if enough people ask, maybe we'll try it sometime. But for us, chicken breast has been kind of like that stuff you'd see in the store. Chop it up, cook it, and then you have like what I would call stir-fry chicken breasts, pieces like that. That's what we've been freeze drying so far. Ellen is currently doing a heap of dehydrating dog treats, saving up for a freeze dryer. They're expensive here. They're not cheap. And again, I love talking about them, and I don't want anybody to ever think, damn it, I need to run out and buy one, because you don't. Everybody's at a different journey. I look back to 25 years ago when I lived in that tiny little second floor apartment on Warwick Street in Digby, Nova Scotia. And I had like 24 jars of strawberry jam and mustard pickles. And I thought, there, I'm prepared. And you know what? I was more prepared than when I started. And dehydrating is more prepared than when you started, and all the other things. So don't ever feel like you have to have one, but they are great. And there's other things you could look at, you know, freeze drying candy or dog treats to sell to other people, or maybe going in with a group of folks, or you know what, maybe hiring someone else to do it, or maybe not even bothering. You don't ever have to. Jeff says, have you ever tried freeze dried chocolate? No, I have not. Or have you ever freeze dried chocolate? Not yet, but I will. I just don't know, excuse me, whether there's any moisture in that to take out. What I did freeze dry that I absolutely adored was fudgesicles. I hope they call them that in the States as well, but they're like a creamy chocolate popsicle. So I freeze dried ice cream sandwiches and fudgesicles, and I loved how the fudgesicles turned out. We got a bunch of them in the long-term storage. Once I get a bunch more saved up there, I'll give you guys kind of a tour of it to show you what we've done. What else? I mentioned earlier that I helped my daughter troubleshoot her furnace over the phone, which was exciting because I got so much faith in Gracie. She lost her poor Elliot. He was a ferret, and he was 8 years old. He passed away this week, and she loves her animals. So, you know, God rest poor Elliot. He was getting pretty old, but she is such an independent lady. Got herself a new truck, and I'm really proud of her. So anytime she has troubles with her house, I will gladly talk her through over the phone, because I know that she is more than capable of doing it. And it turned out that her igniter had died, and we had to get the after hours furnace repair guy there, but we went through all the things that it could have been first. I installed and plumbed a triple sink, a range hood, bulletin boards, shelves, baby gates, and a whole bunch more at the daycare up in Lloyd. We passed our health inspection. We basically have passed our building inspection. We're just waiting for the paper to come in. There was no real issues. He just needed to make the numbers match. You just have to give them what they need, and then you deal with it. There you go. I also get to use a tool that Becky got me for Christmas. It's the DeWalt cordless framing nailer. Worked great for framing up 2x4s. Was a little overpowered for putting paneling on said 2x4s. You live, you learn. And I also, because I needed it and I was in a hurry, I picked up another little DeWalt tool this week at Home Depot. And I had a very important need for it right at the moment. And it's a little tiny 3-inch cutoff tool. It has what's basically a mini angle grinding disc, but you can use it for cutting metal, for cutting ceramics. I don't know what else. Anyway, I know I'm going to find more uses for it, but what I needed to cut was this. It's about a 12-inch long piece of brass threaded tubing that was the offset for the triple sink. And I had no other tools to do it. And I wasn't about to try to cut it with a hacksaw because it was hard. I tried it and it just wouldn't work. So it did it. It was what needed to be done. And now I got another DeWalt tool to test out. And finally, a telephone pole hit me. I hit a telephone pole. I'm trading my truck in this week, and we have this one parking space up at the Lloyd daycare that you have to pull in. Do you guys know those like support lines that come down from telephone poles and they have that yellow sleeve over them to let you know they're there? Well, there is a parking spot out back where my truck fits just perfectly. But I have to swing to get out of the parking spot. And I had it in 2-wheel drive, and it had been a long day. Again, not an excuse, just one of those things that, remember, when you're tired, it's been a long day, it takes an extra minute to think about it. So I just give it a little bit of gas, and when I did, my ass end slid around and boom, right up against the side of the truck. Didn't really make any damage. It just put a nice big basketball-sized dent in the box panel. So I'm going to try to pull that out today because the new truck's coming in a couple of days. We're going to have the workshop logo put on it before I head south, and there you go. So just don't do stupid things with your truck if you can help it, because I'm good like that. All right, next we have
It's the apocalypse. End of days. The judgment day. The end of the world, my friend.
Let's dig into the community mailbag.
So next we'll take a look at what the community sent me this week. But before we do that, let's pop back into the community here. Community comments. Jeff Stark said chocolate maybe turns into powdered chocolate for your powdered milk. I'd be willing to try it. Rachel C says, Jeff, I haven't tried freeze-dried chocolate, but I've looked into storing chocolate, and a good suggestion I ended up finding was to get M&Ms. Milk chocolate, not peanut. It'll go rancid. Makes sense. Yeah, I don't mind that. The thick candy shell apparently makes them store for many, many years without serious degradation, as long as they don't melt. I got them in snack size, in bulk, then into Mylar with O2 absorber. Not a bad idea at all. I do like that. And where my stuff goes in the basement here, it's never going to get hot enough for anything to melt either. So that would actually work out pretty good. All right, so let's dip into the community nail bag and see what we have this week. Number one, this one comes from... oh man, these YouTube usernames, I'm like an old man trying to, do a TikTok dance or something. I can't make my tongue work this way. But Dean Saka 781 said, this was a great comment, and I want to share what they say. He goes, how in the world has this podcast not been viewed more is beyond me. He said, anyone with 2 brain cells should be listening to this channel, and especially James Wesley Rawls. That was the interview I did with the guy who authored Patriots. Now, the reason he didn't see any views on this interview was YouTube launched a new feature this week, and I'm going to share it for a few people so you know what's going on. But I've been really impressed with the feature YouTube's been launching, and if you're a content creator trying to stay on the leading edge of whatever they're bringing out is the best way to grow your channel quickly, because whenever they bring out a new feature, it's going to be something that they are going to push. So YouTube has now allowed you to link your RSS feed. I can't remember what that stands for. It's really simple something. And it's for sharing. It's the way that you subscribe to a podcast. So you basically link to the RSS feed. Now, if you want to see past live streams, they're all on my YouTube channel. However, tons of people like just the audio end of things, and they listen to my podcast via podcast feeds all over the place. So now what YouTube will do is they will pull my audio feed from my podcast feed. They will create a quote unquote video with a static image so that you can listen to my podcast via a YouTube. Really simple syndication. Thank you, Cabot Porter. Appreciate that. So now you can go on there and you can listen to my audio. So there's now going to be a whole feed. There is a feed that has 427 episodes of just audio files that have turned into really simple videos, and YouTube's pushing them like crazy. So the playlist has been up for a day or two, and I believe as of this morning, I maybe picked up 300 or 400 listens on absolutely old stuff. So kind of cool. Let's take a real platform for your audio only stuff to come out and get done. Okay, 427 views on old content that wasn't getting views previously. So if that gives you an idea, I love the idea. If you like using YouTube, and yes, Bonnie Blue wants to know if I'm on the Fountain Podcast platform. I absolutely 100% am. And so here's the other thing. Of course, YouTube's going to run ads on that kind of stuff. So it's going to introduce yet another small portion of ad dollars that goes into the workshop pot. So I'm excited about that. Again, anytime I can reuse old content, because new people come to the community all the time. And this is going to be a great way to get workshop radio in the ear holes of folks who haven't found it before. All right, next comes from another YouTube comment, a user called Sammy Fi, and it's just a great quote. It was shared, I believe, on one of my shorts, and they said, "A successful man is one," you ready, "who can lay a firm foundation with the bricks that others have thrown at him." Quote by David Brinkley. And I love that, because this was quoted in response to somebody's negative comment bullshit on YouTube. Who knows? And I want to tell you, as a content creator and as anybody who ever puts themselves out there, you're going to have a lot of bricks thrown at you. But you know what? Pick them up and build a bomb shelter out of them, because frig them, right? We don't need to worry about it. But what a great inspirational quote. So remember that. Anytime somebody throws a brick at you, they're giving you free building supplies. James Nelson, 1968, says, "Gamma lids." This is in response to last week's long-term food storage video. And I really try hard for my review/informational videos to stay in that 5 to 10 minute range. That is the sweet spot for, information to brevity. And so some stuff gets dropped to the cutting room floor. And two things that didn't make it into last week's video were gamma lids and a discussion of salt. They'll both be in future episodes. Gamma lids are more expensive, but they are far better than the standard 5-gallon bucket lids. I've been doing this for a while, and one I think that is a valuable addition to your bland rice and beans is bulk bouillon. I don't disagree at all. Not expensive and can add a lot of flavor. I am well past storing the bulk starches for my own use, but I have neighbors who prep only a little, if at all. Feeding them is better than shooting them. Trading them something I won't eat anyway is a cheap safety measure. 100%. Absolutely. And I love that. So a few thoughts there. Yes. If you don't know what gamma lids are, they are a 2-part lid that snaps onto an existing 5-gallon bucket. So it gives you a rim around the top and then a double gasketed, tighten down, screw down lid, which makes it much easier to open 10 or 20 years down the road when you're ready to dig into your bulk long-term food storage. But it damn near doubles or does double the cost of your buckets. Now, the other thing, bulk bouillon, love it. We don't have 5-gallon buckets, but we do buy these like half-gallon containers from Costco. Actually, I digress. We do have a 5-gallon bucket of one of the bouillons. So yeah, we love bouillon. It is one of the most versatile things. Just think about it. Fry yourself up some mushrooms and butter and throw a little bit of beef or chicken bouillon on top of that, and it just adds to it. Anything you want to do, a little bit of bouillon never hurts things. What do we got here? Back to the comments. Ellen Kerr says, "Random fact about Australia. We don't have basements. So I'm envious about those who do." I'm sorry, Ellen. I don't know. I wish I could. I don't know what to do for you. But yeah, basements they're a bonus where you live. Something that I discovered when I moved to the prairies is, some basements here are made out of pressure-treated lumber. And I don't think I'd want to trust my basement to lumber, because the ones that I've looked at on houses that I've repoed for the bank over the years, the water tends to run in and run right back out. Rachel says, "Ellen, in southeast North Carolina, we don't have basements either. It's awful to not have a protected, naturally cool area to store things. I'm determined to get something, a storm shelter maybe, I can build a hill around to try to get the same effect." Yes. Or, yeah, I guess the hill would give you thermal mass to help keep things cool. But if you're just looking for protection and storage, an above ground steel or a steel reinforced concrete structure would do the same thing as well. And Cabot said, did you say you were going to test the Home Depot Lowe's screw-on lids that look a lot like camel lids? Well, I didn't have a plan, but I think that's a great idea. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a screenshot of that right now so that I don't forget. If nothing else, that would make some really good short content. So, and Bonnie Blue says, what about a spring house if you have a spring on your property? I always wanted to have, well, back when Becky and I were very first married, in Nova Scotia, it's very common to have dug wells. So on the prairies, nobody has dug wells because the water table is, hundreds of feet below ground. So you have those drilled wells with great big 200 or 240 volt pumps. Well, in Marshalltown where we lived, our dug well was actually in the basement of the house, which naturally cooled it, kept it a little humid, but we never really tapped into that resource per se. It was weird though, because the next door neighbor's house shared the well with us. But I always wanted to have a well in the basement or something, a spring house like that. So there you go. Now, one more thing that we're going to kind of incorporate into the community nail bag as time goes on. If you've been over to the YouTube channel lately, you'll notice I'm starting to run some community engagement polls over there because I love them. I love getting the comments from folks. It gets the channel in front of new eyeballs again, and it gives me an idea of where our community stands on things. So what I'm going to do is pick 2 or 3 polls each week, and I'll share the results with you, and you guys can give me your answers in the live stream here if you think about it as well. Number 1, this one was a simple one and something near and dear to my heart, but I asked folks, what is the tool that you grab and use the most? So third place was a hammer at 12%, socket set at 23%, and my absolute favorite was an impact driver at 62%. We ended up getting 86 votes on that. I love how many people are getting involved in some of these. I didn't put the votes, but the next 2 had nearly 100 apiece. And I wanted to hear this. I was quite excited to hear people's responses to this. How long, and if you guys want to throw it there as well, how long have you been a prepper? The first one, I am brand new, 19%. So basically a fifth of all people coming to the workshop channel are just brand new preppers, which means I need to do my due diligence to talk about the basics as much as I need to talk about the intermediate and the advanced. Less than 10 years, folks. So people who've been prepping for about a decade is a quarter, 23%. Less than 5 years. So they're relatively new, but they've been doing it a while, 28%. And at 30%, I was born a prepper. I got, I wake up and watch Red Dawn every single morning, and I exercise in my underground bomb shelter. But no, 30% of the folks coming to the channel were born preppers. In other words, they've been prepping mostly their entire life. So brand new prepper, 20%, been prepping almost their whole life, 30%. What a cool swing of folks. And then finally, I probably should have worded this poll differently because it was an easy gimme, but I asked the community this week, what is the most important prep to have? 5% said fuel or backup power. These answers sound like something Family Feud like. Food, 9%, bang bangs, 10%. If you haven't seen the new shirt, I like my guns like I like my Democrats, like their voters. Undocumented. That came from John Willis over at SOE Tactical. It's probably the edgiest shirt he sent me yet, but I love it. And then water was 77%. So just about absolutely everybody said water was the most important prep to have. I'm not going to disagree whatsoever. Food Forest Farms, our good buddy Brian. If you don't follow him over on YouTube, give him a follow. And this was in regards to the most important prep. He said, in Seattle, water falls from the sky and fish are abundant. I'm still voting power. Yeah. We talked about this. I want to say maybe it was when Adam from A Modern Frontier was on, and we talked about, or no, it was not. It was the Canadian preparedness. He was on Canoehead. You remember him? Great dude. I listen to him on Instagram all the time. And he said, if you don't have power, you don't have anything. And I really like that. So yes, power is important. Mike D said, bang, bang, number 1 for sure. If you have that, you instantly have the means to acquire the rest. Just kidding, obviously. Quotation marks around it. And Rywin 3290. Water is obviously number 1 for preserving life. But since water and filtering isn't an issue for us, I went with food. Food takes so much longer to obtain and grow. Yep. Especially when you try to put, silver and gold in the ground, they don't sprout up very good. So Digger says, hey, Digger, good to have you. I was a prepper and didn't know it. Yeah, I would agree. I don't think I knew what the term was either. I believe I probably first started becoming aware of it around 2013 when I was working at home. We knew we did this stuff, and maybe we did call it prepping. I'm not really sure, but I remember typing in, I think I typed in a podcast about survival or homesteading or something, because I was selling computer software from home in the evenings till 1 or 2 in the morning, and I had a ton of downtime. And so I was looking for podcasts to listen to. And that's when I stumbled upon the survival podcast. And so I've been listening to Jack for about 11 years and eventually got on his expert counsel. And I think that's probably when I really came to terms with with prepping. We always embraced it before that, but yeah, there you go. And final segment of the night is the creator spotlight. And this is, oh man, I almost forgot the most important one. I didn't have any notes in my show notes tonight for this segment right here. One of our favorites. Everybody seems to.
You stay in the back. You stay in the back room, and you keep your gun handy. Our country is still full of thieving, murdering patriots.
Get ready. I read it on the internet.
So I read it on the internet. This is where we take a look at some of my favorite prepping articles or posts on Reddit this week. So this one here, this comes from Electrical Goose 6496. My significant other believes the apocalypse is imminent and judges me for running alternate strategies. I'm going to read this. It's about 2 paragraphs, but it's worth hearing. My significant other believes that we are likely to experience societal collapse in the U.S. imminently, like weeks to months. Gaza, Israel, Russia, Ukraine, China, Taiwan, general Middle East mischief, internal U.S. strife, reason doesn't matter. But I own the house. We're 20 miles from a major metropolitan area. My job's downtown. My job wants me to go in 3 times a week, but I actually go in once to twice. I have 1.5 acres, chickens, EMP shields, stored stuff, weapons, etc. Houses are stabled an 8-minute drive or 25-minute walk away. The house could be more secure, but I do have great neighbors and I feel good about my community. He feels like we should have moved out to the country a long time ago. I currently can't afford it, and he's not able to afford it on his own. He's mad that he will spend the apocalypse here in what he has deemed an indefensible position from an imminent social unrest horde. I don't feel comfortable giving my house away with nowhere else to move that I feel is as good. I feel that we can work to save money this year and spend a little, but not a lot, on making this place more defensible in the interim, without sacrificing the long-term goal. Nothing seems to make him happy. I feel I'm at a loss. I feel like maintaining the status quo while prepping for the worst makes the most sense. I do not believe that the risk of societal collapse in weeks to months is a guarantee. How do I navigate this? Well, we're going to look at some of the posts that other folks have. But there's a couple of thoughts here. And I've shared this same quote from C.S. Lewis many times about how could anybody do anything in the face of imminent destruction from nuclear catastrophe. And you know what? Here we are, probably 70 years removed from that quote. And he said, hey, the folks who lived in Viking times were constantly afraid of Vikings pulling up to the shore and decimating their population. So if you go back to the preppers in the 50s, they were the back to the landers, the retreaters, the homesteaders, the survivalists, the doomsday preppers. Everybody has something they're worried about. Every folk thinks, or at least every generation thinks, that the world is about to collapse. And everybody thinks they're special and think, I have insight. Not everybody, but lots of people do. And here's the thing. When we focus on preparedness, we have to come up with the things that make our life better, whether times get tough or they don't, right? We've heard it. We all know it. Sometimes you have to talk people down off the ledge. And so I'm kind of wondering, possibly, if this dude might be a fairly new prepper. I don't know. Or maybe he's having some psychological issues. I'm not sure. But here's what Octaharm said. This sounds like something that might be more relevant for therapy. I agree. There's preparedness as a hobby, interest, thoughtfulness, but it sounds like he's suffering from paranoia that is seriously affecting both of your lives. The nothing seems to make him happy makes sense because there isn't anything that will. Anxiety and paranoia isn't something you can fix with just more stuff. Right. I agree. And MIRV888 says, that's what I was going to suggest. I'm no psychiatrist, but in my humble opinion, he's moving into mental illness territory. Your significant other is no more psychic than we are. Becoming certain about future anything is an unwinnable, unattainable argument. I don't know how you could coach it, but he needs professional help. Does anybody remember the book, 88 Reasons the Rapture Will Happen in 1988? Just saying. This kind of stuff happens, right? So I can't even pronounce this username. It says, great point and very well said. To add to that, anxiety and other related mental struggles can make worries and paranoia feel very real to the person experiencing them. It can take over logical thinking and spiral snowball. Getting them help, or at the very least, getting a book, reading up online about anxiety and maybe OCD might help you, might make them feel better understanding what's going on and get it better under control. That's not to say some of his fears and paranoia aren't valid, but that level of fear, paranoia, and inevitability is very likely stemming from some more tangible mental issues. That's what I think. Bonnie Blue, I agree completely. Fear-driven decisions are never good ones. I agree. Lots of folks come to prepping out of a fear-based decision. Somebody comes, I love to use Y2K. I know, 25 years ago, we were preparing for Y2K. Wherever you stand on that today, a lot of people got really scared. And then when it didn't happen, they're like, oh, Chicken Little, sky didn't fall, I'm moving away. But the folks that stuck with it are the folks that realized that something very unlikely that could have happened didn't happen, but it can give us a purpose to look after the things that are way more likely. Health, job, financial, weather-related, that kind of shit. And as long as we don't go down the absolutely asinine, whirlpool that can be some of these conspiracy theories, I think we'll be okay. Now, we all lean more heavily in one area or another, but I worry about people who do this. And so, like I said, I think it's our job to kind of talk them down off the ledge and realize that prepping gives us a purpose. It shouldn't give us paranoia. And so hopefully this couple will work their differences out, because it sounds like they have a really sweet setup. Rachel C. says, from experience, severe anxiety can be a sign of underlying medical issues too. Vitamin deficiency, hormone issues, or autoimmune disease. 100%, folks. I have suffered from generalized anxiety disorder since I was probably 14, 15 years old. I've been on a kind of a low dose anti-anxiety pill since I was 18 years old, and it has helped me immensely. But it's only a stopgap measure if you don't deal with the underlying issues. And that's probably one of the big parts of it, is looking after the things that scare you, getting therapy, talking to people, realizing as you get older that some of the things you worry about aren't worth worrying about, all the above. And it really depends on where you come from. But severe anxiety absolutely can be debilitating, can be crippling, can be one of those things that I'm going to guess there's at least an average, if not above average amount of anxiety within preppers. And I think, and one of my theories is that the idea of being prepared is a way for some folks to manage that kind of stuff. So just a thought. There you are. And you know what? I couldn't go without, I had two. Normally I just share with you one, but I know the show's been going great tonight, and I had two stories from Reddit this week. And how could I not come on and not talk about the massive cell phone power outage, service outage in the U.S.? 18 months ago, we had our own version of that here in Canada. My parents were out here visiting. We were 5 hours away from home. We were getting ready to go on a day-long road trip, and we wake up and cell phone wasn't bad, but the entire point of sale, payment system, bank machines, all of that was down. So this one came from Whose Chair Is This? Massive cell service outage. Intermittent outages for a few 100,000 people. If you were affected, what did you learn? Any shortfalls you identified? To be clear, I don't care about browsing the internet. I'm talking about in an emergency. If cell service were to go down from the start, what are your pitfalls? I work third shift, so my idea of the solar flare wasn't bait. The solar activity almost perfectly aligned with when I lost signal. It was an observation, not a conspiracy theory, simply an observation I made at the time. And one of the downsides to Reddit, and it's probably the reason I don't spend more time on here, is because anytime somebody mentions something like that, they almost get showed it down into oblivion. He said, for a group who preaches about community, some of you guys are quick to jump on people. So that's where it ended. But so originally he threw out the idea of the solar flares being a possibility for this, and they totally could have been. Doesn't look like they were. My guess is it's probably not malice. It was probably stupidity or, infrastructure breakdown, because that's what happened in Canada. But Mr. Crook said, first off, I rely on maps and directions way too much. Directions have always been a challenge. So this means that when something like this happens and what I've taken for granted is gone, I have to be comfortable again with not using my phone to find places. Convenience is great. But man, I need a paper map road atlas. So that's one big pitfall. Second, it makes me conscious of just how much I mess with my phone, and I need to reduce that. So do I. I'm not going to lie. I learned my lesson 2 years ago. You've heard the story about not having any cell service on the interstate and not knowing where I was going. Shart in the Dark said, I agree. We get $50 of free maps from AAA every year. Well, technically they're not free. We use our AAA membership enough to save points on this stuff, and the peace of mind knowing we have cheap tows and lockout service. AAA is one of the gifts we give each other at Valentine's Day. I swear by their maps. Some of them are the best going, in my opinion. And then one more thought on paper maps. Paper maps have an advantage that you can draw on them with highlighter. I do like that. Get a map, outline your way out of a city for something like a flood. Look on Google Earth when the times are good. Get a topographical map. Plan your route. Highlight the route. Routes on paper map. Label it flood and put it in a Ziploc bag. Now you're ready if there's a flood without warning and without having to think about things. Do the same above with the less than legal routes, i.e., there's a massive chemical spill and I have to go east. How do I get out? The service road that runs along the railroad tracks will get me a big ticket in normal times, but if I have to use it, I have a paper map with the route highlighted and planned so that in emergency, I know where to go without having to think, evaluate while panicking, taking out the anxiety of a situation, planning ahead of time, right? Because when we had Ed on here from Iridium Solutions, he said one of the most astute quotes I'd ever heard: we don't rise to the occasion, we fall to our highest level of training. Bonnie Blue says, free maps at highway rest stops, visitor centers. Yes, there are. Map out places where there are vehicles to steal if you need. Holy cow. Well, that might be a little excessive, but we're going to talk about that anyway. Rental car lots, post offices. Map out bridges that are not roads. Mostly these are railroads, but there are various pipeline, hiking, others as well. And finally, I always believed it's best to limit what you're dependent on. The most common would be nicotine for a lot of people, but I'm also thinking things like coffee and even GPS. It's never a bad time or never a bad thought to do a mental exercise of, hey, I'm going to drive the day without GPS. When Becky and I drive around the city, sometimes we get in arguments because we decide we're not going to rely on GPS. But at the end of the day, it strengthens our ability to get around the city without having electronic navigation. So it's not a bad thing. So final segment of today is the Content Creator Spotlight. This is where I share with you guys somebody that I really enjoy, somebody I think you'll get some benefit out of. And this week it is Johnny Weekends, which is an apropos name for the fact that it's Saturday evening. He's got 38.2 thousand subscribers and 260 videos. And his channel is a fair bit of what I model my channel after. And he has a ton of backup power videos. This is the channel that I first saw the new dual fuel Predator generator from Harbor Freight on. And overall, just a great dude. He has a simple way with his videos. He does a great job showing and giving. He buys a lot of them with his own money too, which is great. But you'll see a few here. He's got a backup fuel tank for his generators. This is a new smart generator with Bluetooth, Champion generator, EcoFlow smart generator, just on and on. He does showdown videos. This is the one where I found out about the Predator 5000 recall. So if you're like me and you're a nerd or a geek, can I still use those words? Well, I'm going to. If you're a nerd or geek for backup power, check out Johnny Weekends. His link, as all the links, are in the description below. Well, folks, thanks for coming on a Saturday evening. I think we topped out at 23 live viewers this evening. What a great, I know it was a little bit later than usual. I do love these 7 o'clock Mountain Time start times because we seem to get a little bigger crowd. But it is what it is. We'll see where we end up with all this. But thank you for dropping by this evening. I love doing this week in prepping. It's become the highlight of my content creation journey every single week. So where do we go from here? Well, next week, oh my God. Anyway, it's been a busy couple of days. Like I said, we had a 2-day basketball tournament for the girls. I got volleyball practice tomorrow, basketball game Monday, every day this week. And it'll be a good time, but I'm going to be a little bit busy, but I will have the lives down. I'm recording an episode with Angry American, not for my show, but I'm going to be a guest on his podcast on Tuesday. I don't think the episode will see the light of day for 2 or 3 weeks, so keep an eye out for that as well. There's all kinds of, just a lot of good things coming up. So we have tomorrow night will be a Sunday evening episode of, we're going to do another Content Creators Roundtable. I got Nicole Sauce, I got Brian from the Lots Project, and I have Backwoods Butcher all coming on, and we have a ton of stuff to share with you. So if you have questions about content creation, bring them on. But I want to tell you, we've all been doing great things this last few months since the last time we were on, and we got some good stuff to share with you. So thanks, guys. I hope you loved the snazzed up 1% better every week episode. I'd love some feedback on those stingers/transitions, and I will bring my A game for you every single week. And thanks for letting me have a little bit of flexibility, because Thursday night last week, the internet was the shit, and I apologized, but I wanted to be able to give you the best show I could. So here we are on Saturday night. So enjoy the rest of your weekend with your family. We'll see you tomorrow night for Workshop Radio, the Content Creators Roundtable. And as always, stay happy, stay healthy, and have a great damn week.